Hi, it is Sunday morning, and here I am back at school, ready to make another video for you. This time, even though the screen says step 4, we are in step 7. Step 7, all it asks you to do is to weed through your research and pick the most important pieces that you think will actually help you build your argument. You probably have way more information than you need. Now, something to keep in mind is that you need three sources, okay? You don't need three from each, you just need three sources, and you need to weave them together to create your argument, okay? So, what I have here is my first source. I went back and I found a credible source. It is an encyclopedia article on Queen Isabella of England and France. And as you can see in the center area, I have my source number. It's source number 1. Then I have Isabella of France is the title, and the author is the encyclopedia. Then in source website or source type, I wrote website, and then I also gave us the URL. For currency, I wrote down when it was updated. I found that at the bottom of the page. Okay. Then its relevancy, it's specifically about a strong queen who ruled. The authority, it's an encyclopedia written by experts. I found that by clicking on the About Us part of the website. And then the purpose, it is clearly to inform. As I scroll, I have two direct quotations, meaning I took the words exactly the way they were appeared on the page. And then I have two paraphrases, meaning I wrote down notes in my own words. Okay. Now, in step 7, it asks you to narrow down your evidence to what you think would actually prove your point. Now, one of my main ideas is about the Queen's ruling in during times of war. And if I look at my evidence, okay, I notice my first piece says Isabella plotted an invasion of England to depose, that means bring down her husband Edward. She successfully invaded. Now, that is a really, really, really cool fact. That essentially means she thought her husband was doing a really crappy job, and she got her own army and brought her husband down. Now, I have two choices here. That doesn't actually prove that they ruled instead of their husbands in times of war. This says she made war to rule instead. I have two choices. I could, one, rewrite my main idea to be that queens use their power to rule in times of crisis, or they used their power to get what they want. Okay, I could change my main idea so I could use that piece of evidence. Or I could say, evidence, you were good to me. You brought me joy, but goodbye. And I could say, I don't really need you. Okay. In this case, I decide I'm going to keep my main idea the way it is. So I think that that is not going to be what I want. And so as I look, I realize none of my evidence that I found here actually proves anything about ruling in times of war. I do notice, however, that at the top of my paraphrase, I have a paraphrase that supports my second um, point, which is, or my first point, I suppose, that they worked in foreign policy. They acted like delegates or diplomats. And in this case, Queen Isabella went to France on behalf of the king in order to make peace. So this literal paraphrase helps me prove that point. So I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down to step 7. Okay? So in this case, my source was that encyclopedia. So it was Isabella of France. That was the name of the title. Oops. And the author was New World Encyclopedia. I'm going to abbreviate today. I'm going to paste that paraphrase. Okay. And then here, I'm going to tell me what it proves. Okay. And so this proves, okay, so this shows that Isabella was trusted to go back to her home country and act as a foreign peacemaker. She was able to use her smarts and power to help both countries. Okay, so this helps me organize what of my evidence actually I'm going to use and what is maybe interesting but might not actually prove my point. Now, it's okay to change the main ideas. As you can see, you notice that a lot of my evidence actually had nothing to do with ruling in times of war. It had to do with being powerful and just taking charge. So I might find that if I go back to my main ideas, okay, medieval English queens were responsible for ruling the country when their husbands were away at war. I might feel like that's not appropriate. I might want to change it. Okay. So I might change it to fit the evidence I did find that medieval English queens were not afraid who use their power in order to, how do I want to say this? We're not afraid to use their power in order to rule when necessary. So when I change it to that, it allows me to include times of war, so the evidence I do have, but it allows me to use the evidence I found about Queen Isabella, who literally waged war in order to gain power, which I think is way more cool and strong and feminist than, well, I guess I'm just going to rule because my husband told me to. Okay? So, in that respect, it's okay after looking at your research to change your main idea. So once you've kind of figured out your three sources and you found your evidence that you think you're going to use, you can actually move on and start drafting. Thank you.